Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really wild theory. It starts with a simple tweak to a famous conspiracy, but trust me, it ends up questioning, well, pretty much everything about reality and our place in it. So yeah, let's dive right in.
So, this is the idea that really kicks the whole thing off. Think about it. What if that whole infamous Lizardmen conspiracy theory has nothing to do with alien reptiles, like at all? What if just by changing one single word, from Lizardmen to Dinosaurmen, we unlock a totally different, hidden story about our planet's forgotten past?
And right here, this is the absolute core of the Dinosaurmen theory. It basically just swaps out aliens for something way closer to home. We're talking about the shattered, fragmented memories of a lost, high-tech human civilization that somehow, some way, survived a world-ending catastrophe.
Okay, so just to be super clear, the theory isn't saying these survivors were literally reptiles. Nope, they were advanced humans. But you have to imagine, for the primitive tribes that also survived that cataclysm, these figures, they would have seemed like something else entirely. They were a link to a terrifying, powerful world that was gone, the world of the dinosaurs. So they became the Dinosaurmen, remnants of a forgotten age.
But that brings up a really good question, one that pops up in myths all over the world, right? From Mesopotamia all the way to the Andes. Why do these stories always say the gods came from the sea? Well, this theory has a surprisingly logical answer, and believe me, it has nothing to do with underwater cities. Just picture it for a second. The whole world is basically one big ocean after a massive flood. Now, if a small group of survivors comes out of, say, a giant pyramid or a bunker high up in the mountains, what does that look like to somebody paddling around in a canoe miles away? It's going to look like they're walking right out of the water.
And this isn't just a one-off thing. It's a pattern you see repeated again and again in cultures separated by huge oceans and thousands of years. Some kind of civilizing figure shows up after a disaster, looking like they came from the water, and they just hand over the keys to rebuilding civilization. We're talking agriculture, law, astronomy, the whole deal.
Okay, but hold on. If they were human survivors, what's with the whole reptile and serpent thing? Why is that connection so persistent? Well, this is where the theory gets really interesting, because it taps into one of the oldest, most powerful archetypes in all of human mythology. And this is not some modern invention, folks.
And what's just wild is how consistent this theme is all through history. Seriously, look at this. Whether they're shown as gods bringing knowledge, or these cosmic forces of deception, or even a secret ruling class, the serpent has always been the symbol for some kind of hidden power, working behind the scenes, pulling the strings and shaping our destiny.
So how does an ancient myth like this connect to the real world? Well, the theory argues that this powerful archetype, it wasn't just some campfire story. No, it was the actual blueprint for creating and holding on to power, structures that are still around today.
The logic here is it's simple, but it's also kind of brutal. Think about it. In a world that's been reset to zero, knowledge is the only currency that matters. These survivors, they didn't need some crazy alien tech to look like gods. They just needed to know how to read the stars, or build a solid shelter, or how to grow food. And that knowledge, that became the foundation of their so-called divine right to rule. And here's the thing. This basic structure of control, it never really went away. It just evolved. The methods changed, sure, but the principle is exactly the same. Divine right turns into the mandate of heaven, which becomes feudalism, which becomes economic systems. It's like in every era, the ruling class just gives its user interface a little update. Now this right here is probably the theory's sharpest, most controversial claim. It's basically saying that sacred texts, religious institutions, from the very beginning, they were designed as instruments of power. Their whole purpose was to lock in the authority of the ruling class by saying, hey, our power isn't just some historical accident, it's cosmic destiny. All right, so we've kind of reframed myth, we've reframed power. Now this is where the theory takes its biggest, most ambitious leap yet. We're going to shift from who controls the world to what the world, and maybe even God itself, actually is. So the central idea here is that our almost universal belief in God, it's not a delusion, it's actually an intuitive recognition of a deep, fundamental pattern in the universe. We've just spent thousands of years personifying this pattern, right? Picturing it as a king on a throne, when in reality it might be the throne and the kingdom and everything else all rolled into one. And you see the same pattern at every single scale of existence. It's incredible.
Let's start as big as we can go. Astronomers have found that galaxies aren't just scattered randomly out there. No, they're organized in this massive web-like structure. They call it the cosmic web. And the crazy part? It looks almost exactly like a neural network.
Okay, now let's zoom way in, right down to the ground beneath our feet. There are these fungal networks, mycelium, that form this huge underground web. It's like a natural internet for the soil. It connects all the trees and plants, letting them share nutrients and send information. So a forest, it isn't just a bunch of separate trees. It's one single connected organism.
And for the final step, let's zoom right into the space between your own ears. The billions of neurons in your brain create a network that is structurally, visually, almost identical to the cosmic web and those mycelial networks. From the scale of galaxies down to the scale of our own minds, it is the same pattern over and over and over again.
Which leads to this really powerful metaphor. If the whole universe is one giant mycelial network of consciousness, then what are we? We're the mushrooms. We are the temporary, individual fruiting bodies that pop up so the network can experience and see itself. We're not separate from God or the universe. We are the universe, temporarily forgetting that it's one big thing, just so it can explore what it's like to be an individual.
So, after all that, after this whole journey through ancient myths, power structures, and deep cosmology, what's the big takeaway? Well, the theory proposes that the biggest challenge we face today is simply remembering what our systems have forced us to forget.
And you can see this really clearly when you compare two different ways of seeing the world. On one hand, you have many indigenous cultures that have always held on to this idea of being part of a living, breathing network. And then you have modern consciousness, which, let's be honest, is often built on this powerful illusion that we're all separate. Separate from nature, separate from each other, separate from the whole thing.
Now, just to be super clear again, this isn't about throwing away all our progress and going back to the Stone Age. Not at all. It's about reorienting all the incredible knowledge we have. It's about using our technology to create connection and balance instead of domination and separation. The goal is a kind of synthesis, right? Combining the deep wisdom of that ancient connected worldview with all the powerful tools of the modern mind.
Which really leaves us with one last massive question to chew on. Is it possible that our entire history, all our myths, all our conflicts, our whole search for meaning, is really just a symptom of a kind of species-wide amnesia? And that maybe, just maybe, the most important journey any of us can take is the one that leads back to remembering that we aren't just in the network, we are the network.